I was thinking about that James Baldwin quote that the sort of dominant culture had to create the category of Negro in order to disavow and disown its own shadow. I was thinking that in relation to Edward Said's work in Orientalism, and I was wondering how you think these ideas are playing out now in these sort of times of media cataclysm. What do you think is happening in what you refer to as a sort of cosmic war, kind of an ideological war?
I mean, I think all you have to do is look at the world right now to recognize that we're under the grip of some kind of massive global identity crisis. I think part of this has to do with globalization. I mean, whatever else globalization is, yes, it's an economic term, and yes, it's about new communication technologies and mass migration and all of that stuff. However else you want to define it, it's fundamentally changed the way that we think about ourselves in the world, right? We don't imagine the planet that we used to, the way that we used to even 20 years ago. Certainly you can say that the entire philosophy of the 20th century, which was based on the idea of nationalism, right? If we can all just learn to put away the other forms of identity that we have, our ethnicity, our race, our religion, and instead come together as free and equal citizens of a secular nation state bound by some geographical borders that probably somebody else made, by the way, some other, outsider created for us, that if we could just do that, then all the wars and the conflicts that have raged in human history for so many years, they'll all go away, and we'll have peace and prosperity. So how did that work out for everyone? I mean, you're talking about a century that was unquestionably the bloodiest, most violent century in human history, a century that resulted in the death of tens of millions of people, not in the name of race, not in the name of religion, but in the name of nationalism. And so now that nationalism or national identity seems to no longer hold as much sway, I think people are doing two things. Number one, they're reverting to more primal forms of identity, right? They're going back to ethnicity, race, religion. You're more likely today to define yourself first and foremost as a Christian and then an American, first and foremost as a Muslim and then an Egyptian, first and foremost as a Jew and then an Israeli, than you were even a couple of decades ago. I think that's the first change. And then the second change is, to your point, we're doing the thing that human beings have always done, which is define ourselves in opposition to an other. Right? It's very, very difficult to say what it means to be British right now, but you can say what it means not to be British. It's hard to say what it means to be American, but you can say, what it doesn't mean to be American. All you got to do is just find some internal group that either doesn't look like you or doesn't talk like you or doesn't pray like you, and then use them as this opposite pole to say, well, what it means to be us is to not be them. And this has just gripped the planet, not just in America, not just in the UK, but look at India, look at Russia, look at Turkey, look at Indonesia, look at Israel. And all of these countries, the reason why authoritarianism seems to be on the rise is that there's a guy who says, oh, I know why you all feel unmoored. I know why you're looking around and your neighborhood doesn't look the way it used to. The world doesn't look the way it used to. I know why you're struggling to identify yourself. It's because of the Mexicans. It's because of the Muslims. It's because of the Pakistanis. It's because of whatever. And that's always been a powerful message. It's always been how we define ourselves. And it's now suddenly resurging and with catastrophic consequences.
Thanks for watching this podcast and going all the way to the end of it. Would you so kind as to click the bell, might not be there, could be over there, and subscribing so that we can infiltrate your serenity and peace of mind with jangling bells and buzzes. Thank you.